We are going to stay on that shot, get ready to tee up that video for you all so you can witness this moment, that the procession with the immediate close family of the Carters as they make their way into Phoebe Sumter. So here is that shot for you. Now, Carla, it feels like it wasn't long ago that we experienced the same moment with the former First Lady, Rosalynn Carter.
Just over a year ago, right?
Yes, last November, a very similar scene. Her body, again, transferred from the hospital there and loaded into a casket, and then a procession for her started as well. So again, as you can see, the procession has made its way to Phoebe Sumter, being led by Georgia State Patrol. They're going to be leading pretty much this entire state funeral route from Plains all the way to Atlanta. So they're bringing the procession in there at the beginning.
And then of course, the casket carrying the former president, former governor will be put into the hearse.
Yes.
And then they will make that journey through Southwest Georgia to downtown Plains.
Yes.
And again to Archery. And then on to Atlanta. But the family, they're now in front of Phoebe Sumter, and we will just continue to watch this. And again, this is history.
Oh,
this is history. And the Carters wanted the spotlight to be on Southwest Georgia, Plains, Georgia. And one of the things I will tell you that I watched last night, GPB did tribute after tribute, including the 100th birthday concert that he had. But they also had an interview with the Carters, and one of the things that Rosalynn said, first of all, that they were just Jim and Rosalynn Carter when they returned to Plains. After he was in the Navy, they came back to Plains. After they were in the governor's mansion, they came back to Plains.
Yes.
And after the White House, it was back to Plains. So Southwest Georgia was in their hearts, and again, they will continue to bring in people from all over the world to Southwest Georgia, to Plains, as both of them will be buried on National Park property in Plains.
Yes, absolutely. And again, we're starting to see members of the Secret Service arrive. They will be the pallbearers today, loading the casket of the former president into the hearse. Honorary pallbearers, though, are all of the grandchildren of the former president, including his girl grandchildren, because as we all know, the former president believed in gender equality and said their granddaughters should be included as well. I loved that. I thought that was such a sweet touch. So again, the Secret Service is going to be loading him into the hearse, but the honorary pallbearers will be all of the grandchildren that they loved, absolutely. They've been planning this since 1986, all of the funeral arrangements. That is a long time. We're in 2024 now. That is when the Joint Task Force for the National Capital Region began meeting with Jimmy Carter's office to plan the state funeral. And the president and Mrs. Carter were intimately involved in all of the decisions, Mrs. Carter making all the music selections, and as you know, Carla, being the president of rock and roll, he has quite a spread of music over the next 8 days.
Well, it's of course there's the hearse pulling up in front of Phoebe Sumter, and his body will be placed in that hearse shortly. But it just speaks to how much involvement Southwest Georgia is playing in this in terms of their planning.
It was never a question that
this
is where it would happen.
Plains, Georgia, Archery, all of that.
Absolutely. Now, I do want to give you all a warning here. Once the casket actually exits the hospital doors and starts to be loaded into the hearse, we here will be taking a moment of silence, a pause on our anchoring, so that we can all take in this historic moment together and pay our respects to the former president and governor of Georgia.
Later, of course, after Archery, they will be proceeding to Atlanta. And just a little bit of background, it was October 1st, 1986 that the former president spoke at the formal dedication of the Jimmy Carter Presidential Library and Museum. That museum filled with more artifacts of his 4 years as president. I visited several years back, and there was a Grammy his Grammy
Yes.
was there in that facility.
And he's still up for Grammys this year
That
as
is
well.
correct.
So
That
I'll
is
be
correct.
interested to
I think
see.
this will be he's been nominated 10 times.
Yes.
And he's received 3,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken.
So we're hoping he's
So-
going to take home some more hardware this year.
Yeah, and this one is about planes.
Yes, an audiobook,
That
right?
is
Yeah.
right. Spoken
audio
word,
reading.
the spoken word. But 39th President of the United States, 76th Governor of Georgia. He's remembered across the globe as a humanitarian, a peacemaker, and a man of faith who loved his family and his hometown.
Absolutely. And again, we are watching all of these events unfold. If you are just joining us outside of Phoebe Sumter in Americus, and again, just the wonderful symbolism of what rural medicine meant to the former president. He actually has family members employed at
That is
Phoebe
right.
Sumter, and we're
That
going to
is right.
speak to some of them later today as well about the significance of this being the first stop on his state funeral procession route. And again, we are waiting now for his casket to be carried from the hospital and loaded into the hearse there at Phoebe Sumter. Then they'll make their way to Plains, and then finally archery for the Boyhood Farm tour, where they'll come in, they're going to ring the bell 39 times for our 39th president, as
yes.
Quinlan mentioned earlier. And so we're going to be with you from here in Americus all the way until he is returned to the place where he grew up, starting at the age of 4 years old. And Carla, we were talking yesterday about the Boyhood Farm and home, and I was reading a wonderful memory, the first memory that President Carter had about that home. When they arrived to move in, when he was about 4, the door was locked, and his dad had forgotten the key for them to move in. And so they opened the window. It only opened about 6 inches. And he said, "Jimmy, I need you to crawl through the window and go unlock the front door." And so that is Jimmy Carter's first memory of their home. He said, being useful to my dad for the first time was just an amazing feeling, something he'll always remember. And he continued that legacy, you know, always serving, always finding a way when it didn't seem like there was any way, but, you know, a small opening, he always took it.
And of course, in terms of continuing after that childhood farm stop today, he will continue to Atlanta.
Yes.
And then his body will be moved from Atlanta to Washington, D.C., arriving at the capital state there. And there we have, just bringing your attention to the screen right now, the family going into Phoebe Sumter.
Yeah,
to
a heavy
accompany
moment.
Our 39th president,
Yes.
our 76th governor, from a tiny town. I think